Hi, this is singer-songwriter Elizabeth Edwards. Welcome to Giving Voice to Recovery, a place we share ideas and experience for the purpose of inspiring you on your recovery journey. In this episode of Giving Voice to Recovery, I interview Jenn Beninger, the CEO and founder of Genius Unlocked Coaching Institute. Jenn has refined the art of coaching others on how to delve into what's holding them back and live in their purpose by calling on their intuition. Jenn explains that the best way to get long-lasting and permanent results in any area of life is to cultivate an unshakable trust in yourself by evolving your intuition. She shares her personal recovery story and how these tools helped her move forward in her own life. Listen to find out why and how this unique method will help you take inspired action with confidence. Hi, Jenn.
Hi, Elizabeth. Thank you for having me. This is so exciting.
I am so excited for this interview. I just thank you so much for joining me. I knew we would have an inspiring and hopefully cheerful and fun chat.
Absolutely.
Jenn, for those of you who don't know, I'm Elizabeth Edwards. I'm a singer-songwriter from the San Francisco Bay Area. I'm also a person in long-term recovery. And what that means for me is that I haven't had a need to use drugs or alcohol for almost 35 years.
That is very exciting. Congratulations.
I'll celebrate on October 13th. I don't want to get too ahead of myself. There's like a little, thing about that. But anyway, Jenn is the CEO of a company that I have just really fallen in love with. She started the company Genius Unlocked, which is a coaching institute. Right. And she comes to that work with, I think, a powerful story and a powerful message that I really want to share with you all. And so welcome, Jenn Beninger.
I am so excited to be here, Elizabeth. I know when we were chatting about the different possibilities of when would be a good time for me to share and come share with your audience, share my story with your audience. I loved how aligned it was, and it was so easy and effortless. And I applaud you for being in that long-term recovery. I applaud you for your singer-songwriting business, and I applaud you for continuously working and finding new tools to get us through this thing we called life. And you are a true inspiration, not only to us and our company, but to other of our clients, because you're also in the work. You get to say that you want to transform the world, and you want to empower your audience with these tools and with these opportunities. And that is in 100% complete alignment with what we're doing. And so it really feels amazing to be able to be here. So thank you for having me. And so my story on how I can relate to your audience here is I have been an entrepreneur for 20 plus years. And I've gone through a lot of the mindset shifts that are needed for someone who's going to, be an entrepreneur. Well, then, funny enough, I ran into some personal challenges that I wasn't really equipped to handle. And that was that I was in an alcoholic marriage. So I was the spouse of an alcoholic. And when I first realized, I thought what was happening is I didn't have any tools to know, like, how do I deal with that? What do I do for myself? So I spent the first couple, years, trying to fix him. Right. Because I thought that was my job. Right. Elizabeth, isn't that what some people do? They're like, yeah, I love you. Let me fix you. So I went on this journey and found the personal development work and the NLP and the timeline therapy and the energy work and the meditations and all of that to fix someone else or to fix my marriage. And I realized that in order for anything to get fixed, the only thing I could fix was me. It was all inside of me. It was all going through the PTSD. It was going through the decision-making process. It was going through the empowerment process. It was going through learning to trust myself, to trust my decisions, to be empowered inside of me, to be able to live the life that I want. Because in that environment, that was not the life that I wanted. And it took me a lot of time. It took me a lot of years and some work. Yet what's exciting and what I'm here to share with you is I'm on the other side of it. And there are tools, and there is support, and there is help for you to be out there. And that how I got from that side to the other is what the topic is of our call today. So I just want to let you know that it really does mean a lot to be here, especially with your community of people either knowing someone in recovery or someone who didn't get an opportunity to save themselves, and then be able to share how I got from one side to the other. So I really do appreciate that.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate the fact that you stay in the work too. And the work that I'm talking about is, one of the things about, there's a lot of different, like for me, a foundational piece is 12-step recovery. Absolutely. And I needed that just to go from completely dysfunctional to functional. And when I met you guys, and, I've done a lot of work in between then and now, but I was always looking for that inner relief and that inner understanding of myself. And one of the issues that I think I continued to run up against were things like, patterns of behavior that I knew that were limiting me, but I couldn't see them. Like what you often say, Jen, is that you can't see the label inside the jar. Well, I couldn't see it. And so when I found coaching and when I found the Genius Unlocked community, which is working on a lot of different levels, you guys offered tools that really helped me understand my inner world on a whole new level through language. And I'd already been so inclined toward language because of being a songwriter that it was like this perfect match. It was like all these, like, when you get the big ding, 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 the lights go off, you go, oh yeah, this, you need to look at this is for you. And I got that big hit. So can you let us know, I know, but can you let the audience know some of the ways in which what you guys do and what I've been doing with you, how talking to yourself and how understanding the voices in the different, we call it the committee, right?
Oh, is that
that's the name of it. Yeah, the committee, but you would call it the four voices. Sometimes I think I have, 14, 16, 20 people up there, but it's really four voices. Can you share a little bit about the work around that? That has been a big, huge piece for me.
So yes, Elizabeth, I would love to share that, because that is exactly where I had to start, is understanding what was going on and who was talking to me inside of my head. And we realized that, you call it the committee, so we do call it the four voices. So there's three voices inside of your head that are not, they all have a job, and they are all part of you. And we want to give them love and gratitude. And we don't want to listen to them and buy into everything that they're saying. What do I mean by that? So those three voices that I'm talking about, one of them is your inner critic, right? So you have your inner critic. I'm sure your listeners are all like, oh yeah, I know that one. I'm not good enough. Don't do that. That you're not going to be saved. The inner critic. Okay. Then you have your ego, right? Mm-hmm. Now your ego puts a stake in the ground and wants to be right. Okay. So it wants to be right. And then you have your inner child, which is most of us that are having challenges with our inner child, it's more around emotions of hurt or, betrayal or things along those lines. So what happens is they all have a job. Okay. Their job is amazing. What happens is our conscious mind doesn't understand their job, so we let them run amok. Mm-hmm. So who here lets their inner child, their inner critic, or their ego just run amok? They come out without asking, they're bossy, they think they rule the roost, right?
They're loud.
They're loud, right? So those are the three voices. So what are their jobs? Okay. All of their jobs is to keep you safe. Right? So your inner child is talking to you because it wants to keep you safe so it doesn't repeat the hurt or the betrayal. Fair enough. Your inner critic comes out to stop you from doing anything that is unknown to the inner critic, so it wants to keep you safe. And then your ego is the ultimate protector. It knows everything that is right, so it digs in, right? I'm not sure if you or anyone that has dug in on a point, and it doesn't matter if they're right, right? Because they aren't coming off of it. So we have the other voice, the fourth voice, and that's the voice of your intuition. So when we talk about the difference between the three voices on this side and your intuition always, always has your best interest at heart. And your intuition is always having you strive for more, to have you strive for the best of your life. When you want more, when you have dreams and aspirations and goals, your intuition wants you to go after those. Well, what happens is your three other voices go, ah, that's the unknown. And so they speak up and they're really loud. Okay. So what we do is what we want to work with all of our clients, no matter what we're doing, is work with everyone to realize that these three voices are just like warning bells. They're your gas light coming on in your car, the little annoying battery beep when your smoke alarm goes out, right? The little ding, ding, ding that you left the refrigerator door open too long, right? It's to let you know, hey, be aware of something. Your intuition, then, this is the cool thing. This is the coolest thing, Elizabeth. Your intuition can translate what the other three voices are saying, and you can get the learnings. And guess what happens when they feel heard? They start to be more quiet. They quiet down, right? So if your ego wants to protect you against something, you ask your intuition, well, intuition, what is the ego? What does my ego want me to know right now? Well, it wants you to understand that you're going into something in the unknown. It wants to protect you, and it wants you to know that you are strong, that you are brave, that you can trust yourself, that you have all the answers inside of you. And it wants you to know all this. And then your intuition says, do you understand all of that? And you go, yes, I do. And then your ego is quiet. So it's this amazing way to communicate inside your unconscious mind, because they all have a purpose. The purpose, though, of your intuition, the first thing about your intuition is that it is always kind. Always kind. May not always be gentle, right, Elizabeth? We've had a few little, you're like, oh, snap, that was some rough conversation with my intuition, but they're always kind.
Yeah.
So I know that there's so many people in this world, and I was one of them. That's why I know, where you have, you've heard of the 80-20 rule. Like, we can make everything the 80-20 rule, right? Well, most of us have 80% of the thoughts and the talking that's happening in our head are the three voices. And those three voices aren't serving us if we don't get the learnings. And we're at 20% listening to our intuition. And what do I mean by that? It means that gut feeling that you get. Some of you take action on that gut feeling and others of you don't. But you're like, oh, darn, I should have listened to my gut, and bought Apple stock. No, just teasing. Yeah. It's like, we all wish we had an intuition about Apple stock, right?
Apple stock. Well,
Apple stock.
One of the questions I have about that I would like you to speak to is, how do you know it's your intuition?
That's right.
I know I ask you that all the time, but I want you to tell everybody else that.
And that's a huge thing. Well, that's what I was saying. Literally, that's where I was going with that, because your intuition is always kind. So if you're listening, if you have 80% of the voices going on in your head, and you realize, are you shaming yourself? Mm-hmm. Are you beating yourself up? Are you justifying your existence? Are you feeling that you're the victim of some circumstance, right? You're like, oh my gosh. I mean, think about the pandemic. There's a lot of us that could be thinking that we're a victim of the we're like, I can't control the pandemic, so it's affecting my life. If those thoughts are the 80% of those thoughts are not kind to you, not trusting yourself, shaming yourself, beating yourself up, blaming, justifying, all of that thought, that's a clue it's not your intuition. Your intuition, if let's just say it's like at a 20%, right? It's that feeling or that knowing, or some people, they can hear, like there's audio people who can hear things visual, they can see, knowing, or they just have this gut feeling. A lot of people describe their gut feeling, right? Mm-hmm. And it feels good. But what happens, Elizabeth, is some people, they can't tell the difference between excitement and fear. And they think fear or / anxiety, right? Fear is the past, anxiety is fear of the future, and excitement, sometimes that feels the same to people. So they get this intuitive hit and they get excited and they're like, but that's really close to fear or anxiety, so I back off and I must not do it. What we want to help people do with what we're going to be talking about even more today is understanding, unlocking your intuition. How do you know that it's your intuition? How do you tell the difference physically, kinesthetically in your body between fear, anxiety, and excitement? Mm-hmm. How do you know the voice in your head that says, you know what, Elizabeth, you can get sober. You know what, Elizabeth, you can start a podcast. You know, Elizabeth, you can have write the song that's going to be in movies. I mean, it's like, it's those feelings. The problem is we don't trust them. It's not really even, I loved your question. Like, how do you know it's your intuition? Mm-hmm. I could easily tell you that in the next 30 seconds. It's really about what do you deserve to do with yourself so that you can trust it. So if your intuition gives you an inspired action or an intuitive hit, then taking action and trusting that that's going to work for you. So many people hear from their intuition and then shrink back, and then their other three voices like swallow it up. And that's what we want to work with people.
And I think that inspired action is such it's kind of like a response. Like if you were having a conversation with somebody and you were asking them to help you, and then they gave you the help you asked for, but then you said, yeah, but I'm not going to do this because I'm too afraid. It'd be the same thing. Your intuition's going to go, okay, okay. Yeah. So, I mean, I think that piece about the inspired action and having that faith to walk out on that intuitive hit and say, you know what, I have faith in my intuition and what the intuition's guiding me toward. I can trust that the action's going to lead me to what I need to do. It's going to take me to my needs. And that's another thing I've really learned a lot from you about the difference between wants and needs. And you know that I work a lot with I think, I feel, I need. It's a process that a lot of people in recovery, you know, I learned through my own practice and experience. A lot of people, you know, were shut down as children. I came from a big family, said, you know, I don't care what you think, and I'll give you something to cry about and don't even ask. So
there's your inner child, right?
Yeah, so I think I feel I need was completely disabled by the time I was a teenager and I started drinking and using, and that didn't really help that development of that. So in my recovery, I learned to really practice that congruency of I think, I feel, I need. Can you share a little bit about some of the conversations that we've had around the difference between needs and wants and
Beautiful.
how to get those needs met in really healthy ways?
Yes. And it all stems from trusting and understanding your intuition. So what we say is that, so let's say you have an idea. I'm going to use the example that I use. So let's say you have this idea, right? And it becomes a thought. Well, if it's a positive thought, but then you have a negative emotion attached to it, then you're going to have negative steps to take, right? Which is what you were just describing, is then you're if you have a thought and then your emotion is negative, and then your steps are to use or to do something, drink like, or do something like that. What you want to do is we want to find out, are the thoughts the challenge? Are you having challenging thoughts? Do you not understand the emotions? Are your feelings, are you the emotions around it? Number one, some people can't even access some of those emotions. And some people, anytime they have a thought, a negative emotion comes up because of what they've been going through. Okay. And then, or you have some people that are like, no, my thoughts are good, Jenn and Elizabeth. My feelings are good, Jenn and Elizabeth. I don't know what to do. I don't know the steps. Right. So then what happens is if we get caught in that cycle, in that wheel of negative thoughts, negative emotions, and not knowing how to do things, we don't bring it into the physical plane, or we bring it into the physical plane and it goes sideways. Mm-hmm. Right. So in order, you have to have all four. You have to have positive thoughts, positive emotions, positive steps on what you're actually going to do in the physical world. And then you actually have to do it. And we call that inspired action. So I preface the question that you asked me with that, because that's where we find some of the differences of people who want something and someone who needs something. Okay. So the way that we teach it, and Elizabeth and I had a really amazing conversation about this just the other day. So she's gonna connect it to how she's been sharing it with you. For those of you who are longtime listeners, or if you're first time listeners, please go listen to past podcasts, because she's brilliant at this stuff. And what we say is, if you want something, you can keep the want. Like let's just say you want a healthy relationship. Let's just say relationship, right? You want a healthy relationship. Maybe it's with a spouse, maybe it's with a child, maybe it's with a parent. Let's just generalize, you want a healthy relationship. What happens is, if you feel the only way you can function in life is if you need it, like you need it. What happens is, when you need it like this, that's what starts altering your thoughts, your emotions, thinking that you know what to do, and then you don't take action. Okay, so you want to make sure that you can want something, but the need has to come from inside. So if someone comes to you and says, Elizabeth, the reason they say, Elizabeth, I want a healthy relationship. And you're like, great. What's important to you? This would be a question you would ask someone. What's important to you about having a healthy relationship? They said, oh, well, I want stability. Yikes. Because that's a need that if you put the need outside of yourself, then there's a whole lot of words I could use to describe it, right? I mean, we can go to the whole extreme of full on codependency, or we can just go to the other, extreme of not trusting yourself. Yet if you can go inside, really develop, evolve, and integrate your intuition, knowing that no matter what, you can be stability for yourself, and you can trust yourself, and you believe in yourself, and you have the faith in yourself, you have the resources or the ability to go get them, then the stability of what's important to you about having a relationship, that's a bonus. It's not a need. You could want it. You could say, yeah, I want to have more. I want to have stability with my new spouse or my child or my parent, but I don't need it. Like, you hold on to that like desperation. And that's the hardest thing, just for people to realize. Once they realize it, they're like, got it. Let me work on developing, trusting my intuition, knowing what I can do inside, clean up the work inside, right? Because that's what I did when I was talking about that, about with my story, is that's why I was trying to save the marriage so much, is because I needed that identity. Mm-hmm. I needed the identity instead of wanting a health. So the need outweighed the want. I wanted a healthy relationship, but I needed the stability, which kept me in an abusive alcoholic relationship for too long.
And I think what's so important about the distinction and the clarification that we're working on here with this is that we, as individual human beings, we all have a huge inner resource, a vast, huge inner resource. And when I would say that if you went all the way up and looked at what we would call addiction in the world, okay, it's some form of, I need that out there to fix this in here. I would say that is my definition of all. That's the dynamic of addiction.
That's the dynamic of most people who who aren't living the life that they want.
Yeah, exactly. And so what it is addiction. Yeah, it's like, and in recovery world, we would say, I'm trying to fill that God-sized hole with all this other stuff. And I got to wait for this guy out here to change for me to be okay in here. And not only do I have to wait for him to want to, then I have to make sure he does it the way that I need him to do it so that it works. And that's not going to happen. And no. I think the key is to really learn to go inside. The need isn't about what you need out here. The need is to recognize that inner resource so that you can tap into that and trust it. And the work that you have brought to my life, and the work that I continue to do with you guys and take to the rest of my community, really is all about that, is accessing those inner resources and trusting that.
It's and trusting. So there's the deeper, which is what we're going to circle back to the very beginning of what we started talking about, is you've got to trust the right voice, though, because exactly. They'll go inside and they'll say, well, my ego said this and my inner critic said, so I must be doing it right. It's not about right or wrong. It's about, these are the three questions. So Elizabeth, I love these questions. So what's working in your life, ladies and gentlemen? What's not working, and what do you want to do differently? Most likely the stuff that's working is you're in alignment, you're in flow, and your intuition, you just may not be knowing that your intuition, you may not be able to have that relationship yet enough to know what your intuition is doing. When you look at what's working, your intuition has something to do with it. When you look at what's not working, I bet you if you really took a minute, you'd be like, my inner critic, my inner child, or my ego is in my not working. And what would I do differently? What I would do differently is ask your intuition, develop your intuition to get the answers of what's not working so that it can then start working. And that, I mean, like, those are the questions that when you had asked me earlier, like, how do you know when your intuition is really there? It's look at what's working in your life. Look at look at the similarities. Business is booming. My relationship with my kids is amazing. Yet over here, my marriage isn't so good. So, I wonder what's working, what's not working. Well, I'm not listening to my intuition. My ego is trying to fix it. My inner child doesn't want to get hurt. My inner critic, I don't even want to go. She was so bad, I had to name her. Right. I was like, I'm like, nope. So it's what we want to do is we want to take that 80%, and this is really our life's work, is to take that 80% of the other three voices and the 20% of your intuition and turn it over. Mm-hmm. The three, we don't want to blame, shame, get mad at, kick at, blame, yell at our three voices that the ego, the inner, no. They serve a purpose. They're all part of you. If you're mean to those parts in your mind, you're being still mean to yourself. So stop it. We don't do that. We say, ego, I hear you. Or I'm trying to hear you. What do you need me to know that I'm not hearing from you? Your intuition can translate.
What exactly is your intuition? Your
intuition is your connection to your higher self or your definition of source. So you came into this world, and this is not a philosophy. It's your religion, not my, whatever you want. It's your definition. It could go anywhere from unconditional love to organized religion to source energy. That's for you to decide. It's that when you came into this world, you were here of pure unconsciousness. You were truly you were just pure unconsciousness, pure innocence. And then this wonderful thing called life creates these decisions. Some of them are positive decisions. Some of them are negative or limiting decisions. You understand positive emotions. You understand negative emotions. Well, as the emotions flow, what's supposed to happen is you're supposed to get the learnings from the negative emotions and let them go. Well, what happens is if we don't have the tools to do that, we hold on to the negative emotions and they become this big old anger, right? Or this big old sadness. I don't know what to do with it. So what your intuition does is your intuition takes, these were the learnings we were wanting you to learn, Elizabeth. When you came into this as a pure, innocent, pure unconscious mind, you were full of strength and power and bravery and compassion and empathy and love. And you're magical and you're beautiful and you're unique and you're a world changer. That's how so your intuition is reminding you of what you truly are while life put all these blocks in the way. And it's the translator between your unconscious and your conscious mind. Your unconscious mind is your pureness, right? Your innocence as you came in. and your conscious mind is what you need to be a person on this planet. We're all in the physical world. They're both important, yet your conscious and your unconscious mind can't talk to each other. Your intuition is the one that communicates with the two of them. So does that make sense? Answer your question?
So it's really developing that ability to get those two parts of yourself to understand each other. And I know we could go way deeper into the work on that, but I want to bring it back around on something that you made point of, and that is when the unconscious mind is putting something, or when the intuition's bringing something up in front of us, like you call it the dead fish, which I think is hilarious. I used to call it my big aha moments, but sometimes it's truly feels like a dead fish, even though I never get a black eye, but sometimes I do feel like, wow.
You're like, oh, Sam.
Yeah. And so those projections, what's going on with that? Because that's something that I think happens a lot in around, addiction has such a stigma. I don't even like to use the word addiction, substance use disorder, but it affects families, it affects individuals, it affects communities, it affects our world. Everybody knows somebody. And we project a lot onto it as a society. And we also, as people in recovery, a lot of times we accept the shame on a very unconscious level. And I think through the work that I've done with you and your group and your community, which I consider my community too, but that community is wonderful because I've really started to understand on a deeper level the opportunity when I see something out in front of me that I've learned to recognize projections even on a deeper level, what that is giving me the opportunity to do versus I used to go, oh yeah, I don't like that person. We call it, if you spot it, you got it. And I know that from working the steps and I know how to own my part in something, but there's a whole new level that I've learned from you. Can you talk a little bit about the way the unconscious mind, the intuition and projection and what the opportunity there is, what's going on with that?
Absolutely. If this had been your first question you asked me, I would probably talk for, a week straight. So I love this topic because this topic changed my life. I had to develop and communicate and evolve and integrate my intuition. Once I did that, so that's step one, is really getting that relationship with your intuition. Then, like you said, you can start understanding your projections and solve things like that. So what do we mean by that? So it is based from Carl Jung. So it's not just Jenn made this up one day, even though I do have a psychology degree, but I did not just make this up one day. Okay. So it is actually based in science. And basically the philosophy is your unconscious mind is just that. It's unconscious. If you don't bring what's in your unconscious mind conscious, how are you going to know what's in your unconscious mind? So this is what your unconscious mind does, is it takes everything that's unconscious and projects it out in front of you, like ba-bam. Now, there is positive projections. Please know positive. You have just as many positive projections in your life as negative projections. We just tend to ignore the positive ones. Once you start developing your intuition, you'll start really loving your positive projections. So positive projections, if you see someone that you are like, wow, they're inspiring. If you see it in them, it's inside of you. Just like she said, if you spot it, you got it. That's for positive stuff too. So if you think someone is a wonderful communicator, guess what? You are a wonderful communicator. We just need to get you connected to your intuition so you can learn how to communicate differently. If you're like, oh my gosh, I love how powerful or how empowered they are, or how successful they are, or how whatever, that is inside of you. So sometimes people are like, yeah, sure. It's like those people that can't accept a compliment. No, take it in, because if someone's complimenting you, then that means that they're also complimenting themselves, because if they see it in you, they see it's inside of them. Maybe you'll think a compliment's a whole bit different now. Okay. So accept compliments, really pay attention to the positive projections that you have in your life, because the negative projections, just like your inner voices, your three inner voices are a little loud and clunky. Okay. So what do we mean by that? So again, whatever's the most unconscious gets projected out in front of you. So your conscious mind can see what's happening. So if you say, like Elizabeth said, let's say you're looking at someone and you think they're disrespectful. Let's call it a word. So you're talking to someone and you're like, wow, that person is super disrespectful. That's an unconscious projection. So what do we mean by that? So that's why we want you to go to your intuition and say, wow, if I really thought Bob was super disrespectful, what's going on inside of me? Now, if you're taking notes, or if this is the one thing I really want you to hear me though. I really want you to hear this. Just because you're projecting on Bob doesn't mean it's an exact, direct projection to you. It is not always in the same area of life, and it is not to the same degree. So what do I mean by that? So let's say you're looking at Bob and you're like, okay, he's disrespectful. Bob's a coworker. So you're in the context of work, and on a scale of 1 to 10, his disrespect is an 8. Okay. So let's just just to help you understand the concept. It doesn't mean that you're an 8 disrespectful person at work. That's what I mean. It's not a direct projection. Yet what it allows you to do is to ask your intuition to go inside. All your answers are inside, people. I promise you. Go inside and say, ask your intuition, okay, what does this represent to me? What is coming up for me? Now, it could turn out that you're being disrespectful to yourself. Maybe you made a commitment that you didn't keep for yourself. Maybe you're letting your inner critic talk smack a little bit too much in your head, and you're disrespecting yourself. Okay, so it could be self or others. Or let's say that you're dealing with a spouse or a child. Let's say you're dealing with a child, and you realize you're like, wow, the other day, I don't really necessarily think I talked to my child with the utmost respect. I think I was a little disrespectful to my child. Okay, so it doesn't have anything to do with Bob. Bob's a mirror. Bob is a mirror. He just showed you to go look inside and go, oh, snap. So then guess what you just did? You just brought the unconscious conscious, because you went inside and you're like, I'm curious. Why does Bob being disrespectful? You weren't even in the conversation. You just witnessed him being disrespectful. He's a mirror. And you go, wow, I wonder what's going on inside that I don't see, because that's projecting out there, because it's the only way your conscious mind can let your unconscious mind let your conscious mind something's up. So when you bring something conscious, you bring it into what? Awareness. Consciousness equals awareness. And once you're aware of something, then what do? You have choices, you have empowerment, you have solutions, you can be creative, you can go, oh, snap, I maybe need to not talk smack to myself so much, or go talk to your child and say, hey, I just want to realize I wasn't communicating very well. Can we have this conversation again? And then you clean it up. So that's what we mean by you're projecting outside of you. So, and Elizabeth, can I take just a minute and tell you how I can relate this back to my story?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because I want to make sure, did I answer your question though?
Yeah. No, this is a beautiful example. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then let me tell you how this absolutely applicable. And this is how I was able to have the most amazing divorce with an alcoholic that I think is in history, right? Because it's like, because I cleaned up my projections. So we weren't meant to be together anymore. Fair enough. So what I had to do though, is I went through oh my gosh, why can't I fix him? Oh my gosh, why can't he do what he said he's going to do? Right. And I was pushing it outside of myself. It was 8 years. I was done. Okay. After 25 years married, 8 of those I was done. So what I had to do is I had to be like, okay, still a projection, because he's in my space. If he's in my space, it's a projection. So what I had to do is I had to go, where's the projection inside of me? Because I'm not the alcoholic. I'm not the one drinking. I don't understand. Got it. What happened? And no, I'm not taking responsibility for his choices. I'm taking responsibility for my projection. So my projection was, I changed the picture. And what do I mean by that? So we've been together for 26 years. And we were 21 and 22. And I was going to work in corporate America. He was going to go do his career, yada, yada, yada. We were going to have a family. Well, then guess what happened? This thing called life. We had infertility, then we had to wear it with the kids. And then I quit my job because I wanted to be a mom. If I fought so hard to have kids, now I'm a full-time entrepreneur. My business is, and he's over here going, whoa, that's not what I signed up for. And I realized I had to take responsibility for changing the picture. So I had to go, what is this projection that I'm putting? Why am I having still negative thoughts and emotions? Oh, because I'm wanting him to take responsibility for not changing, yet I'm not willing to take responsibility for changing. Mm-hmm. Do you see? Mm-hmm. Do you see it? It's like, that's what we mean by a dead fish. You're like, whoopah. You're like, wait, what?
And it's really owning your part.
My part.
Yes.
That's exactly right. I had to own my part. I kept saying, why can't he change? I can't take responsibility for him. What do I need to do to get you to change? But the projection was so unconscious. Mm-hmm. So this is okay. I want you guys to hear this one thing. Please, 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 please stop blaming and shaming yourself. Please. You didn't know what you didn't know. I didn't know what my projection was. What I was willing to do was find out. I brought it conscious and I went, oh, got it.
And that speaks so beautifully to both sides of a relationship where there's an addiction involved. There's both people have a part in that. And you see this a lot for the person who has substance use disorder or some type of an addiction issue going on. Active addiction is a very, very, very traumatizing thing to live with, no matter if it's a spouse or a family member. It's a very combative environment for the most part, very scary. And the person who has that problem, a big part of coming to terms with that and making that change, which is totally doable. But I'll tell you what I've seen this over and over again, is you have to own it if you want to change it. So that means I got to own my part. And when you own your part, the beautiful thing I've seen happen is when two people can do that, they can get on with their life and they don't have to be enemies. They're going to be married to each other because maybe those lessons in life that needed to be learned got learned. And now it's time to move to that next level for whatever that is. And there's no shame in that. But the shaming and the blaming and not owning it, it's one of the lines in my songs is when I change, the world will change with me. And what I meant by that was, it's me that has to change. It's me that has to see it. It's me that I'm the only one who can do it for me. And if I don't do it, it's not going to change because I'd have to wait for him to change the way I want him to change. And that's probably just not going to happen. So I need to own it. So I love that. I'll tell you real quick about.
Go ahead.
One of my biggest projections I saw, I have a pattern of behavior called compliance. It's a codependency pattern where I'll just kind of go along to get along. And the more somebody's kind of like, it's like I'm getting more and more angry as the more and more I comply. Well, I was angry at somebody for complying in a relationship they were in. And I didn't feel like they were really paying attention to the relationship with me. And I was like, it's just always that way. It's always, and the minute I applied this, I went, well, where am I complying? Oh my God, I'm complying with him. And I'm mad at him for complying with her. And the minute I owned it, it changed the relationship.
Damn. Just like that.
It just completely shifted. I owned it. And what was interesting, the dynamic that created was I felt rejected and he felt abandoned because we were both complying and neither one of us could see it. So whoever sees it first, own it and then share it. And then share it with the people that you love because they're probably doing it too. And it's a great way to resolve conflict in your life. So one of the areas that projection really, like we talked about, it keeps people in denial. Denial is it's a killer in the world of a substance use disorder, because basically it's your fault I'm drinking or using or whatever, and then I'm just going to drink at you, because it really does feel like it is their fault and I'm the victim here. It really does feel like that.
Oh, yeah.
The grace that you get as a person in recovery is that moment of clarity where somebody says, oh my God, it's me. And it doesn't feel, I always say my worst day turned out to be my best day. And it was that day, for me, October 13th, 1986.
Yep.
Yeah, that's when it was, 86. I was 25 years old. I got that awareness. I'd been drinking heavily for 7 years, and it was everybody else's fault that I was a mess.
Yeah.
It was they didn't get me. They didn't understand me. And I had that moment. But here's where projection shows up after you're a recovered person is, oh, that person is shaming me. Well, where am I shaming myself?
Or others. You could be shaming others that
are we off shame because we can't stand the load of that heavy emotion. So we put it over there. And now you got this big shame circle. And then the other thing that happens is, because we're so wounded in a lot of ways, and I'm talking, we live on planet Earth, and there's a lot of combat and there's a lot of trauma, and that's just true. Some of us are more equipped to deal with that than others. And what happens is, in recovery, you can get really sucked into shaming yourself if you're not overcoming, like getting perfect enough. And this was what happened to me. I should speak for myself, is you start shaming yourself, thinking that's going to make me, my fourth step, I'm going to do some inventory work around this, and I'm going to somehow get perfect at some point. Or, God's going to remove all these defects of character in my sixth and seventh step. And he will, if you get ready to let them go. He's not going to pull your coping mechanisms out from under you without developing new skills and new abilities.
Yes.
And that's what this work has helped me do, is to up my game, up my investment in trusting myself so that I can take action. So I'm not stuck in these limiting patterns or character defects, whatever you want to call them. I don't actually like the word defects of character, because I think they're more limiting patterns of behavior that feel like they become part of your personality. So the projection that I put out there is a huge gift, because it's my opportunity to say, hey, Elizabeth Edwards, time to go look inside, girl. What's mine and what's not mine? And when it's not mine, there's no charge on it. I'm like, not mine.
Not mine.
Mine. I got to go look.
I know. And that's the thing, is in your unconscious mind is so brilliant, because it will, the biggest not me that you're saying, that's not me. No, that is not me. That is actually the most unconscious projection, because it has to be so in your face. You're like, oh, the horror. That is not me.
And if it's and the way if it's a projection is because you've got some charge on it and you can't let it go, and you're running the hamster wheel in your head about it. Oh, that's so not me. Oh, it's not me, not me. Now, if it's really not yours, there's no charge. It's like a passing thought, like, oh, yeah, okay, whatever.
It won't even be in your sphere of awareness.
Yeah.
So the only thing that's in your sphere of awareness is your positive and negative projections. That's it. It's the only thing in your awareness. So have you ever gone somewhere with a friend and you're sitting there having lunch, and your friend looks up and says, oh my gosh, did you hear that siren? And you're like, no, because it wasn't in your awareness. It was in their awareness. And it's like a simple example, but that if you can grasp it at that level, then you can understand that if it doesn't bother you, it's not in your awareness at all. If you're just like, oh, that's interesting, and you move on, you forget, because it's not positive or negative. So what we want you to do is we want you to take your negative projections that your unconscious mind is putting in front of you, get the learnings so that you have more positive projections and less charge.
Yeah. And then
that's really this work does.
And the work frees you up on the inside. And what has happened for me is, when I've been able to really dig into this work, it's freed up the creativity in my life. because I'm tapped into intuition and I'm downloading new content, new information, new music, the things that my creator wants me to channel into this world. So that's the benefit.
You're genius. That's why we're called Genius Unlocked.
There you go.
Your negative projections are clogging up your genius, your negative projections, your negative thoughts, your negative emotions, and listening to the three loud, annoying voices. They have a purpose, so we don't want to be mad at them. It was really about turning up your intuition, trusting yourself, loving yourself, listening to yourself so that you can unlock your genius, which is what you're here on this planet to do. So absolutely true and amazing.
And just for a little tip on the voices is a lot of that's coming from other people's programming, and that's why we inherit a lot of that
1,000,000%.
Yeah. So just so you know, we get to look at all that good stuff.
90% of your thoughts are not your own until you realize they're not your own, and then they become your own. So what does that mean? So if you wait until, if you're like 18 years old and you go, oh wait, that's not my thought. All the thoughts you had up until 18, they were someone else's. Mm-hmm. You just adopted them. So until you make that moment of, I'm going to start really, critical thinking is really the term that most people are aware of. Until you start critically thinking, which means thinking for yourself and realizing that your thoughts are now 100% your own, 90% of your thoughts don't belong to you. They were installed in you when language was developed in 0 to 7. So that can give yourself some grace there, ladies and gentlemen. Give yourself some grace.
Yeah, absolutely. And my favorite, I have 2 questions that I love to question if it was my thought or your thought. And I really learned good questions from you guys. You guys have really, and I'm taking that into these projects that I'm doing online. My favorite question to challenge and check is, what would I have to believe to feel this way? And do I want to believe that anymore? And if the answer is no, the follow-up question is, what else could this mean? What else could this mean? Because I get to assign that.
Say that again. Those were brilliant. Say those again.
What would I have to believe to feel this way? And if I don't want to feel this, if I don't want to believe that anymore, because I don't want to feel this anymore, what else could that mean? Because I get to determine, as a conscious person, I get to choose what I believe. Mm-hmm. And when I do that, I take ownership. Again, that internal resource. We have the ability to question our beliefs. And those emotions, beliefs are just hardened thought. They're just locked in, anchored thought. And when we can take a look at that and question that and say, is that really what I believe? Or have I just stacked up all my experiences to make myself right? Is it possible that that could mean something totally different? And if it's possible, what else could it mean?
Brilliant. And that's where you get freedom. That's where you get choices. That's where you get creativity. That's where you get curious. We want you curious, not dug in. Dug in doesn't solve anything. Curiosity, creativity. I hate that stupid thing. Curiosity killed the cat. No, it didn't. Curiosity is freedom. It's choice. It's options. If you start feeling trapped or stuck, it's just because we got to get into your intuition and find out, what does that mean? What other choices do you have? Where can you take ownership? Where can you take responsibility? And as soon as I took responsibility for my part, I had the easiest divorce on the planet.
It's that power to change.
That's it.
I wrote a song that a lot of people on this call might know about, called The Power to Change. Power to change is when we own it. It's when we own that inner world, because there's a whole lot there. And when you operate from that is when your life gets amazing.
And what so many people don't understand, and I know it because I didn't understand. I was in my 40s before I figured this stuff out. So just give yourself a break. It's all good. Is it takes so much more energy to live in the stuck state than it does to take the ownership. It might take a minute. It might be, some of you might say, oh, but it's hard. But man, is it worth it? Man, is it worth it on the other side?
Absolutely. And I also just want to say one more thing about that is that it really helps to have a community of like-minded people that support you in your
Imperative.
growth. Because when you're making big growth, if it's either through a 12-step program or a coaching community or a wellness community, it is so important to support yourself by like-minded people, because you're going to change. And when you change, your outer world's going to change, including some of the people around you are going to look at you differently. And you may need to renegotiate some relationships.
Beautiful.
You may need to let go of some things. So it takes a lot of courage to be a person on planet Earth. And it takes a lot of courage to recover. It just really does. It takes a lot.
It takes a lot of courage, like you said, just to have your life. And why would you not want to go hang out with people who think like you?
Exactly.
You might need to think about that, because or
not even just think like you, but think like you want to think. That's even better.
And are living the lives that you're like, everyone is on their journey. So if you're projecting positively, on someone's journey or whatnot that you want, then that's where you want to go and surround yourself with.
And the big clue for me there is, are they demonstrating it, and are they living in the work and growing themselves? Those are the criteria I look for, and I would encourage anybody else to look for there. I have a couple of other things I wanted to really tap into if you have a minute here.
I do. I love you sharing this information. Thank you for letting me talk. And I'm very excited to support people in realizing how much empowerment they have, and that they don't deserve to be talking negatively, blaming, shaming, and justifying themselves in their head anymore. It's my life's work. So yes, please, what's next?
Yeah, absolutely. Probably one of the biggest areas of life, the negative self-talk, the lack of self-compassion. These are things I see all the time. It took me a long time to figure out that beating myself up doesn't make me go faster or do better, right? So that negative self-talk is a really important piece of this. So for the many millions of people out there who are dealing with active addiction, either in themselves or with a loved one, what's the most important thing that you think the work that you're doing can do to help them?
And thank you for asking that question, because this answer 2 or 3 years ago would be completely different because of where I am in the process of all of this. And it really, truly, the core piece of it is really learning how to trust yourself. It is listening to the intuition, because like what you just said, Elizabeth, with the transition from the last question to this question, when you said that lack of self-compassion and that negative self-talk, that negative self-talk is exactly what we mean when we're talking about the ego, the inner child, and the inner critic, which means they're trying desperately for you to hear them. And then what they're doing is then they're projecting what they're trying to tell you out in front of you. They're doing everything possible to get you to bring it conscious. When you bring it conscious, like you said, the relationship changed. You both realized that you were complying with each other, and one was lost and one was abandoned and one was betrayed and you can stop all of that. So knowing that you don't have to blame or shame yourself, and just realize that you have you just ask yourself the question, oh, this is interesting. I wonder what's unconscious I need to bring conscious. Like you could actually just pattern interrupt yourself. And when you're in these negative thoughts and emotions, just go, I'm wondering what is unconscious that I deserve to bring conscious. And when you can start developing and trusting those answers, trusting your intuition, the world around you is going to change. So if you're in active space, and I can almost feel you by saying, but Jen, I don't even know if I have one. You do. It may be totally turned off. That's okay. If you feel your negative 3 voices, your other 3 voices are 100% of what's going on in your head, it's okay, because you now heard us talk about it. And there's a reason that you heard it, because that just turned it on right now. So what your best thing, the next best step for you to take is to start learning all that you can about how to find that intuition inside of you, which is your higher self, which is your pure innocence, which is what you are here on this planet for, which is how source sees you, whatever your definition of source is. It could be the universe, unconditional love, God, whatever it is. It's your intuition is that voice letting you know that's how they see you. And when you can start tapping into that, tuning into that, finding the feelings, then that's your first step of getting from that, maybe it's 99 to 100% and turning it over so you can really start trusting yourself. And it's one step at a time. I mean, I know that's all, it truly is. It is one day, one step. What's the next thing? Oh, I didn't listen to my intuition that time, but I know what it felt like. I'll do it next time. Oh, wait, I didn't realize that that's what my intuition could do. Oh, I'll remember that next time. It's that active growing and having hope. It really is about having hope that you can find the answers and you don't have to look outside of you anymore.
And I know you have a program that's coming up, and I really want to share it with us.
Oh my gosh.
Because there's tools and there's techniques and there's a community of people that can support this work. So let us know. Why don't you tell everybody what you got cooking over there?
Yes. Oh my gosh. Please come hang out with us. Okay. So it's actually called, now it's going to sound a little weird. No, I'm just teasing. It's actually called Keys to Unlocking Your Intuition. It's like, who knew? But so like you see all this fancy stuff on my sign back there. That's just so you don't see my door. And it's like all these things that we teach and these certifications, and we just want to let people know, but the silver bullet in every single thing we teach, the silver bullet is your intuition. And this is step one. So it's 5 days. It is, it's $37. It's $37 because if you're going to invest in yourself, we want to invest in you. You just got to take that step. So it's $37. You get 5 days. Okay. So
it's 90 minutes.
I was just about to say, so it's a 90. I'm sorry. Let me finish. Yeah. I was like, that left them hanging. There was some ambiguity in that. So it's 90 minutes
for 5 days. Okay.
And yeah, so you're like, it's 5 days. You're like, wait, am I like locking me in a room somewhere? We're going to a deserted island. No, I'm teasing. It's 5 days of a 90-minute webinar with myself and my business partner, Carson, who also is in this work. And we're going to share with you keys to unlocking the intuition. So it's 90 minutes. And then there's going to be meditation after, because I know that a lot of people, when you're like, okay, well, Jen, you can talk at me with my intuition. How do I experience it? So we're going to have meditations for you to actually start stepping, whether you're fully connected with your intuition, how to understand it more, or if you're just starting, these meditations will support you. And then the best part, absolute best part, is that you're going to get 3 coaching calls with an amazing coach, and her name is Elizabeth Edwards. So she can coach you through these 5 days. So it's September, it starts next Saturday, which is September 25th through the 29th. So it's Saturday, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday from 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. Pacific time. It's on Zoom. We do have it recorded. So if like, you're like, I've got to do something on a Monday at 9, I can catch it up. We can do that for you. Elizabeth, you're going to give them the link that they can in the show notes or in an email.
Yeah, it'll be in the show. Yeah, I'll be putting the information out there. And I'm part of a coaching team with Carol Feeney, who is also does this work with me. So we will be coaching and supporting the intuition challenge. We're super excited about it. Just so you know, I've been in meditation for all kinds of different meditation for years. And I just have to say, you are probably one of the most intuitive guided meditation practitioners I have ever met. Incredibly powerful work. I always just walk away going, oh man, that was like life-changing, cool stuff. So I really am so excited to be involved with the work that you're doing, and so happy that you have joined me here today. Thank you, Jen. And I will have all the links and all the stuff down in the show notes. So thank you, my friend. And
thank you for letting me share my story. Thank you for all of you that took the opportunity. The universe brought you to hear this,
Yes.
whenever you're hearing this in your life, even if it's after the challenge and you're listening to it again, just stay connected and really tap into your intuition and know that you have the answers inside of you. And we look very much forward to seeing you on the challenge. And Elizabeth, your community is amazing. You're amazing. Thank you for having me here. And I cannot wait to maybe come back one day and share some really more good stuff with your audience.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jen.
All right, thanks.